Pepito exits the Philippine Area of Responsibility on Monday, November 18, according to State Weather Bureau, Pag-asa. Based on Pag-asa's weather bulletin posted 5 p.m., Pepito was last spotted 405 kilometers west-northwest of Sinait, Ilocos Sur. It has maximum sustained winds of 110 kilometers per hour near the center and gustiness of up to 135 kilometers per hour. Pepito is moving west-northwestward at 20 kilometers per hour. Upon its exit from the country, all tropical cyclone wind signals nationwide have been lifted. The surge of the northeasterly wind flow enhanced by Pepito will bring strong to gale force gusts over coastal and upland areas that are exposed to winds. The threat of storm surge inundation has ceased as Pepito continues to move away from the country. Outside the Philippine Area of Responsibility, the tropical cyclone will turn more westward or west-southwestward under the influence of an incoming northeasterly wind surge. Meanwhile, President Bongbong Marcos earlier said that one person has died in Camarines Norte due to Pepito. United States and Philippine defense chiefs signed an agreement on sharing classified military information and technology as the longtime treaty allies deepen cooperation in a bid to counter Chinese influence in the region. On Monday, November 18, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin signs the deal with his Philippine counterpart, Gilberto Teodoro Jr., at the start of his visit to Manila that will also include a meeting with President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. The U.S. Department of Defense had previously conducted a security assessment of selected Philippine military facilities, which is one of the requirements for the formalization of the General Security of Military Information Agreement. According to the officials, the General Security of Military Information Agreement allows for the sharing of classified information that could benefit a U.S. ally's national defense and streamlines the sale of certain classified technologies. Austin and Teodoro did not make any remarks at the signing ceremony, but the Philippine Defense Department says the document was a critical step to enhance information sharing and deepen interoperability between the Philippines and the U.S. During the ceremony, Teodoro awards the Outstanding Achievement Medal to Austin, recognizing his contributions to strengthening the bilateral defense ties between the Philippines and the U.S., as well as promoting regional security in the Indo-Pacific. It comes as the Marcos government pushes back against Beijing's territorial claims over most of the South China Sea, and as U.S. President-elect Donald Trump prepares to return to office. China has brushed aside an international ruling that its claims have no legal basis and has deployed Navy and Coast Guard vessels. The Philippine government has called out China's moves over the waters, saying China harasses Philippine vessels, which stops Filipino personnel from accessing some reefs and islands in the waters. This has led to violent confrontations that have resulted in injuries to Filipino personnel and damage to their vessels in the past 18 months. Justice Secretary Jesus Crispin Remulla says that the task force looking into extrajudicial killings during the drug war is also probing former President Rodrigo Duterte's possible violation of the international humanitarian law. In an interview on Monday, November 18, Remulla says that while several laws are being looked at to be filed against Duterte, they are looking specifically at Republic Act No. 9581 or the International Humanitarian Law. Signed into law on December 11, 2009, the International Humanitarian Law defines and penalizes what is considered the most severe crimes of concern to the international community, such as war crimes, genocide, and other crimes against humanity. Remulla says he just met with the head of the agency's task force and that they are already investigating Duterte. Early this month, Remulla issued Department Order 778 creating the task force on extrajudicial killings allegedly committed under the Duterte administration's drug war. The Philippine government maintains that the country has fully functioning judicial system and is capable of prosecuting anybody, including the former president, if needed.
We want the charges to be separate from each other. What we charge here and what the ICC charges have to be, if possible, will not overlap. Kasi ano yan even if we're not members of the ICC, the spirit of complementarity still applies.
The spirit of complementary means that the International Criminal Court will only have secondary jurisdiction over national courts and can only act if the national court refuses or cannot prosecute Duterte. Davao del Norte 1st District Representative Pantaleon Alvarez believes the House of Representatives should stop conducting Quad Committee hearings as no new issues surfaced when former President Rodrigo Duterte was invited as a resource person. In a statement on Monday, November 18, Alvarez says the things that Duterte mentioned during the November 13 hearing of the Quad Committee were not surprising. He recalls that the remarks Duterte made were already part of the former president's previous campaign promise. Alvarez adds that the hearing was completed without any new information coming out and that there were no bases formed for any case to be filed against the former president. Because of this, Alvarez says it is better for the Congress to stop the Quad Committee hearings because it is a waste of time and resources. Furthermore, Alvarez accuses the Quad Committee of just trying to discredit a potential candidate for the 2028 presidential elections. According to Alvarez, a former Speaker of the House, this should prompt Duterte to seek a return to Malacanang in 2028. The lawmaker points out that Vice President Sara Duterte accumulated more votes than President Bongbong Marcos during the 2022 elections. He adds that the frustrations of Filipinos towards Marcos' administration grew because of promises that were not fulfilled, especially on the price of rice. Citing the 1987 Constitution, Alvarez says the former president can again run for presidential elections. Alvarez believes that Duterte can still mount a national campaign in 2028, saying the former president is still strong physically as he was able to endure a grueling hearing. Duterte attended the Quad Committee hearing on November 13, which was initially cancelled as the panel's leaders preferred to validate first the testimonies from potential witnesses. However, Quad Committee lead presiding officer in Surigao del Norte's 2nd District Representative Robert Ace Barbers said that they decided to push through with the hearing to maximize Duterte's attendance. Several issues were tackled during the hearing, like the alleged human rights violations in the Duterte administration's drug war. These include claims that police officers who killed drug suspects were rewarded with money, as well as the former president's order to encourage criminals to fight back so they could be killed. But there were instances during the hearing when Duterte issued contradicting statements. Lawmakers at the House of Representatives have raised a 1 million peso reward for anyone who can tell the whereabouts of a certain Mary Grace Piattos, whose name appears in acknowledgement receipts made by Vice President Sara Duterte's office. During a press briefing on Monday, November 18, Zambales 1st District Representative J. Kong Hoon says members of the House Committee on Good Government and Accountability and the Quad panel decided to raise a cash reward so that they can start drafting the committee report.
Sa katunayan, dahil sa gusto nga nating matapos na yung hearing sa committee na ito, aming binibigyan na importansya na kailangan dumating yung mga ipinatawag natin. Lalong-lalo na pati yung mga pumirma ng mga acknowledgement receipt. So, nag-usap-usap kami, voluntaryo, na magbibigay kami ng pabuya ng 1 million pesos sa kung sino mang makakapagsabi o makakapagbigay ng impormasyon kung sino si Mary Grace Piattos.
Meanwhile, La Union 1st District Representative Paulo Ortega V says the House has been fair in tackling issues involving the office of the Vice President while being lenient on resource persons not showing up before the Committee on Public Accountability and Good Governance.
We've been lenient enough na bigay na pong invitasyon, meron na pong mga orders for the resource person. So, nag-aantay pa rin po tayo. We've shown that the House has been fair and the committee has been doing its job with lahat ng po ng klaseng diligence binibigay naman po namin sa karespeto. So, it's about time na they attend and they explain.
Piattos has not shown up at the House hearings despite being the signatory of several acknowledgement receipts for the Office of the Vice President's expenditures, particularly involving confidential fund usage. It was Antipolo 2nd District Representative Romeo Acop who pointed out to the Commission on Audit that several of the acknowledgement receipts were signed by a certain Mary Grace Piattos. During the panel's hearing last November 5, Acop expressed doubts if Mary Grace Piattos is a legitimate identity as the signatory's first name is similar to a coffee shop while her last name is a famous potato chip brand. The acknowledgement receipts signed off by Piattos were part of the liquidation reports discussed during the same hearing, referring to the 23.8 million peso confidential funds covered by 158 receipts. The committee has been investigating the alleged fund misuse at the Office of the Vice President and the Department of Education under Duterte, including the supposed irregularities in confidential fund expenditures. The Commission on Audit issued a notice of disallowance on the 73.2 million pesos of the Office of the Vice President's 125 million peso confidential funds for 2022, an item which several lawmakers said should not be available in the first place as the original budget crafted during the time of former Vice President Leni Robredo did not have this item. These observations have led the committee to check on the issues on the Office of the Vice President's budget utilization. Last November 11, some officials of the Office of the Vice President have been cited for contempt by the House panel for not attending the hearings despite numerous invitations. The committee members believe the individuals cited for contempt would have been key for the panel's investigation regarding the alleged misuse of public funds by offices under Duterte. After last week's hikes, motorists can heave a sigh of relief as petroleum products will have slight reductions starting Tuesday, November 19. In separate advisories, Sea Oil, Petrogas, Clean Fuel, and Shell Pilipinas say diesel prices will decrease by 75 centavos per liter, while gasoline prices will go down by 85 centavos per liter. Kerosene prices will also be reduced by 90 centavos per liter. Department of Energy Oil Industry Management Bureau Director Rodela Romero says the fuel price cuts could be attributed to weaker demand forecasts made by the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries and allies led by Russia. Romero adds that a bleak outlook on demand from China, a major crude importer, could also weigh down on prices.